Good evening, guys. Hello. Welcome to live session 4. Really fundamentally important one tonight, and I'll get to why in a minute. So as always, before we dive in, just a very big and sincere thank you for all of the amazing interaction on this page, but perhaps even more so the support, okay? Because there's been a couple of posts on the group today from people who are having very difficult times. I know, Claire, you posted about your mum dying recently. Another post from Jenny about caring for a dad with late onset Alzheimer's, and just such an outpouring of support and kindness and help, and just that sense of other people having your back. And I think, you know, I got to those posts quite late, and by the time I commented, they'd had kind of 30-40 replies. And that's the power of these kind of groups, that level, you know, posting something up, asking for help, asking for advice, and you just kind of get this flood of just kindness and support. And it never ceases to kind of amaze me and move me when that happens. So a really big thank you to everyone for showing up, for offering your advice, offering your help, not just to the people who are going through a very difficult time through grief and bereavement, but just on the general posts about remedies and people sharing their recipes and what they're making, and just so much positivity. People saying how well everyone's doing and congratulating each other on what they're making and the remedies they're creating. So I love watching it. So a very sincere thank you for all of the involvement and energy and positivity in the group. Before I dive in, like I say every time, sorry for the boring repetition, if you could just give me an absolute barrage, flurry of emojis, smiley faces, thumbs up, just to get the video to the top of the feed so everyone can find it a little bit more easy. And also, last night, I don't know if you could tell from the weird noises, but we've got a big Maine Coon cat, big cat, and she jumped through the window, and she was making a nuisance of herself, and she jumped up on the desk and was meowing and doing all kinds of nonsense. So I don't know if you guys could hear that, but if you could, apologies if it was distracting. I've locked the door, locked the window, so we won't be invaded by a giant domestic cat tonight, so that's always good as well. So tonight, you may remember, and you may have completed it, on Saturday, I think, or Friday, I posted up a poll on the Facebook group, you know, saying what's your motivation for being here? What's your primary objectives? What are you looking to achieve? And the runaway winner, by a long way, in terms of what you guys said you wanted, was support and advice, you know, herbal support, herbal recommendations, herbal advice for boosting health, boosting vitality, boosting energy, increasing that kind of sense of youthfulness in body and mind. And that's very much the aim of today's session. It's to look at, you know, a selection of remedies, a selection of herbs that are time tested in that capacity, but are also robustly proven from the Western published clinical evidence. And they were herbs that I would never be without. They were herbs that I use daily. And I will also talk about some, incredible remedies from the Himalayan monasteries that I'm not aware have been published anywhere else. And I'll tell you about how I got my hands on them in a little bit. But I think it's worth emphasizing why this is such an important topic. And it's great that when I asked those questions on the poll, that most people said, this is what I want. I want to feel strong. I want to feel healthy. I want to feel vital. I want to feel youthful. I want to feel energized. And it really hit me when I read that, because you never quite know what you're going to get back from those polls. But if we think about every facet of our lives, every facet of your life, every facet of my life, our hobbies, our passions, our work, our relationships, the demands on us, everything is better, easier, more successful, more enjoyable when we're feeling fit, strong, and young. Everything. Think about whatever your most burning hobby or passion is. How much more enjoyable that passion will be when you're feeling fit and strong and young compared to the same hobby if you weren't. Looking after kids or grandkids, going to work, taking the bins out, whatever it may be. Every facet of life is obviously made much more fluid, much easier, much more enjoyable when we're in tip-top health. And there's a difference between being super healthy and not being ill. Okay, you can not be ill but not feel vital. Okay, and what I'm talking about here is that exuberance, that outpouring of physical energy and vitality. And we know the evidence around the ability of herbs to facilitate that, to change our biochemistry, to change our cell function, that so we experience these qualities is unequivocal. We know herbs can do this, they do it reliably. And there's that very famous saying that I always think of when I think about this, which is, health is the crown on the well person's head that only the sick can see. Health is the crown on the well person's head that only the sick can see. We take our health for granted, don't we, really, until we become ill, whether that's a really bad cold or we can't walk because we've got a injured knee or whatever it may be. And tonight is about how we build that crown on our own heads using herbal protocols. And the Himalayan secret, the Himalayan angle here, it was very hard in many ways to choose and pick what to talk about, because I've got 20 years of research and data and remedies and recipes for using herbs in this context. And what made me ultimately choose to explore the Himalayan remedies with you today is, one, because I think they're the most powerful. Two, I use them, so I know they work. Three, I've used them in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people over the years professionally, and I know I've seen the impact they have. And four, the published research to show why they work in the way they work. Because I think it's always important to marry the ancient traditional with the modern kind of clinical, okay? And to my mind, the Himalayan traditions of herbal medicine are the most powerful and the most profound in the context of the promotion of health, energy, vitality, youthfulness. And there's a beautiful concept of why. Okay, and I've got this firsthand from my mentor George, who spent years. He's a GP. He was my old professor at the hospital. He was devoutly committed to the Himalayan spirituality and lifestyle. He went to Cambridge, so he was kind of this very classical, kind of classically trained British man with this real passion and interest in the Eastern practices and Eastern herbalism and Eastern spirituality. And he spent years and years and years of his life in monasteries all around the Himalayas. And the thing that drew him back was when he went there, the first thing that hit him almost between the eyes was the youthfulness of the people living there, the lay people and the monks. Okay, men or women in their 70s and 80s with a get up and go and a level of health and independence and movement and fitness and stamina and just vivaciousness for life. And he was like, how do you guys facilitate this? And there were lots of things, but the cherry on the cake was their herbal protocols. And they had this beautiful concept which is called countering the mountain. Okay, countering the mountain. Which is based upon the idea that all of these monasteries and communities are in quite isolated regions of the Himalaya, and as soon as you step outside, you're either walking up a very, very steep path or a very, very steep downward path. You're always having any travel is difficult. It requires a high level of fitness, a high level of stamina and energy, and they said that as soon as you lose that, if you're a monk or a lay person living in these regions, as soon as you lose the ability to move in those regions, what happens? You're isolated, you lose your independence, you lose your social connection, you're reliant on other people, you lose your quality of life. So they developed profound protocols for countering the mountain, allowing people as they age, and these protocols were mobilized when the people turned 40. So 40 years of age, you mobilize these protocols so that as you age, you continue to maintain your youthful stamina, strength, vitality, health, energy. And I love that concept, countering the mountain. And what I love as well is that if it works that profoundly well in those extreme environments, extreme weather, mountainous regions, imagine how more effective they're going to be in more normal areas like where I live or maybe where you live. And what I was, I feel very privileged to have access to is that George, my mentor, who I just spoke about, he, over the years and years and years that he spent living in these monasteries, he compiled dozens and dozens of these kinds of notebooks filled with their history, their lineage, their library of herbal knowledge, medical knowledge, how you use herbs, how you create these very powerful remedies for different things. And I've got dozens and dozens of these books and remedies, and I don't know if they've ever been published anywhere else, and I feel so privileged to, like I say, to be custodian of them, and I want to share some of those with you tonight. And in my Master Home Herbalist course, which is kind of the whole package, I think I know a lot of you have already bought that, but I talk about this in a lot more detail, and I'll discuss that briefly tomorrow. But tonight I want to discuss some of the most powerful and practical remedies for mobilizing this, countering the mountain, this youthful energy, and remedies for facilitating it. Okay, and the first remedy is actually called the Himalayan monastery elixir. Okay, that's what they called it. Okay, the Himalayan monastery elixir. And there's a few ways of making it. It looks disgusting, but it tastes really, really nice. There are two ways of making it. The traditional way, which is called a herbal electry. This is a herbal electry. This is the authentic, genuine one that is, the recipe is probably unchanged over thousands of years. There's also a modernized version, which I've kind of created to make it more practical for life in the West. Okay, so if it, this isn't one of their ones. I've taken their knowledge and kind of westernized it to a degree based upon my own needs. Okay, but they're both using very similar protocols. So what is the Himalayan monastery elixir? Okay, it was when George asked these communities, what is your chief? You've given me over the 5-10 years that I've been coming to see you guys and your neighboring communities, you've given me notebookfuls of remedies and recipes. But if you had to pick one that was most responsible for why you guys as a community are almost defying aging, what would it be? And it turned out that this was it. It was a monastery elixir that everyone in the monastery, novices, elders, lay people, took from the age of 40, okay, as a way of countering the mountain, like I just said, as a way of cultivating a level of energy and youthfulness as we age, to essentially offset aging in the body and mind. And what I find fascinating is that this recipe, I mean, the consensus was that it's over 800 years old, but it makes no difference, it's ancient. What I find fascinating is that if we look at the remedy and the herbs that are in it through the lens of the published evidence, what we see is that it does clinically exactly what the monks said it did, which was galvanize and energize the body. And there's lots of herbs that go into it. There are some culinary herbs, but the two most important herbs that go into it, the most important one is Rhodiola, which is why I put it in the workbook as one of the herbs that I recommend getting. And the other herb is Ashwagandha, okay? And I want to just briefly talk about why these herbs are so important. And Rhodiola is, to me, the most phenomenal herb in the world in terms of how it works. Okay, so Rhodiola is called Arctic root. It only grows in the Arctic region. It only grows high up. The worse the soil, the better it grows. You can't commercially grow it. You can't commercially cultivate it. It can survive temperatures of, plus 40 in the Himalayan summers down to minus 50 in the Himalayan winters. So it has this robustness that it's almost indestructible. No roots, in tiny little cracks, no soil, covered in snow half the year, burning sun for 4 months, and it thrives. The worse the environment, the more effectively it grows. So it's kind of like this bulletproof, incredibly robust herb botanically. But when humans consume it, that kind of robustness seems to transfer into our cells, because what the clinical research shows, the published research shows, is that when we take rhodiola, it's got loads of benefits, and I'll briefly go through them. But the one that I think is most relevant for us, based upon the content we're talking about tonight, is that within about 15 to 20 days of taking rhodiola, it physically changes the working of the mitochondria in our cells. Okay, so right in the middle of the cell is a component called the mitochondria, which is the power station. It's what creates energy in the cells. And most specifically, it increases the production of something called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Apologies for the late night science lesson, but it's important because ATP, adenosine triphosphate, is our energy currency. It's the currency of energy in the body. So if you're tired, if you're jet lagged, if you're run down, if you've got long COVID, if you've got chronic fatigue, if you're just feeling tired, you will have a lower level of ATP. If you're feeling really strong, really energized, and really fit and healthy, you have a higher level of ATP. So anything that we can do to stimulate ATP production will always result in an increase in physical energy reserves. And within about 15 to 20 days, most people will discernibly experience that. You will feel a progressive, a progressive but discernible increase in kind of youthful energy. Okay, it's a wonder to see. I've prescribed this to hundreds of people over the years, and almost to a one, they will say, "I feel like I'm 10 years younger," or "I feel like I feel younger." And we should feel like that, because it makes the cells work like they're younger. Okay, so it's literally a way of creating youthful energy. But it's also got loads of other benefits. Crucially, it's a prophylaxis or a preventative of heart disease. Okay, it really is effective at strengthening the heart as a muscle. It strengthens the contractions of the ventricles, increases blood flow, oxygen flow, nutrient delivery. Okay, so it's a brilliant herb for keeping the heart strong, which is a fundamental to keeping the body well fueled and energized. Crucially, it's one of the most powerful anti-cancer herbs in the world. Okay, the ability of rhodiola to prevent healthy cells mutating into cancerous cells is overwhelming. Its ability to induce cell death in established cancer cells is incredible. Okay, it increases blood flow into the brain. That's a clinically proven fact. So it increases cognition, it increases alertness, it increases memory. It's kind of like youthfulness in a herb, and it genuinely is. I've kind of made, for me, it's a herb that I've studied for over 30 years, and it just keeps on giving. Okay, so that's one of the key herbs in the Himalayan monastery elixir. The other herb is Ashwagandha. Okay, which I'm sure lots of you probably would have heard of. Maybe some of you are using it. Ashwagandha is called the king of Ayurvedic medicine. Okay, because it's revered as one of the most important tonic herb. Okay, it's called a rasanyana, which translates as that which destroys aging and disease. So these are herbs that increase energy, increase stamina, all the things I've just spoken about. But the thing that Ashwagandha does very specifically is that it increases energy in the muscles and the physical body. So from the Sanskrit, the colloquial translation of Ashwagandha is kind of stallion. Okay, the energy or the strength of a stallion. And on the one hand, that's because when you grind the fresh root, it kind of has like a horsey, musty smell. But more importantly, it's said to engender the vitality and the vigor of a pure-blooded stallion. That was the way they perceived it. And we know, so the British Olympic team, the American Olympic Association, most of the Olympic associations use ashwagandha as a way of increasing physical energy, blood flow to the muscles, recovery time. So it's great for if you're working hard, if you've got a lot on, if you're juggling work and kids, and if you've got lots going on and you need more reserves. Ashwagandha is transformative. Okay, I use ashwagandha every day. It's got anti-cancer actions. One of the key benefits, I think, for integrating ashwagandha is that it's clinically proven as an anti-Alzheimer's herb. Okay, some of the most advanced American research, ashwagandha is being heralded as one of the first herbs that's going to enter into the Western mainstream management of Alzheimer's in neurology. Okay, because of the way it protects brain cells. So it's anti-aging. It just creates this youthful feeling in the body. It's also a clinically proven aphrodisiac. Okay, so beware. That could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing, but it's an aphrodisiac. Okay, you've got to use it in slightly higher doses to get that, but it increases sexual energy, it increases libido, it increases performance. It's used in male health for things like male impotence. It's used in things like postmenopausal libido issues. It's anything like that. Okay, so each of those herbs are overwhelmingly effective in the context of youthfulness. Okay, combine them into one remedy alongside other herbs like cinnamon, cardamom, turmeric, ginger, and then suddenly you've got this tonic herb. It's herbal alchemy. You're combining multiple herbs into one remedy to get a synergistic gain, like we spoke about with the honey on Monday. Okay, and the classic way of doing it is to mix it in a specific ratio into raw honey. Okay, but it's not like the honey we spoke about on Monday. Okay, it's not like so you can tip it up and it won't come out. So it's like a thick paste. Okay, it's not like a runny honey. It's not probiotic. You're not fermenting it. It's just a way of containing the herbs and delivering them. So you can just spoon it out, take it off the spoon. You can mix it into porridge, which is what I do. You can add it into smoothies. Okay, so an electuary is like a super thick, almost semi-solid paste that combines raw honey with the herbs. So okay, that's the classical way of making it. And the recipe for that is up on the resources website. You can find it there now, and I'll email it out tomorrow. But having that in your apothecary, I've seen some beautiful photos today of people, all their remedies and recipes, these beautiful cupboards devoted to your home apothecary. That is one that I think is absolutely mandatory to have 1 teaspoon a day. Okay, and 1 teaspoon a day. If you need a more of a discernible energy hit, maybe twice a day, 1 with breakfast and 1 after dinner. Okay, I want to put it into perspective. I've used this extensively in people post chemotherapy when they're immunocompromised, they're emaciated, they're weakened, they're wasted, and there's a way of overcoming that. Not on its own, obviously, but as part of a bigger treatment plan. This is almost always used. Okay, so I cannot recommend it enough. I feel so privileged to be able to share it with you because I don't think it's written down in any books. I've never seen it published. I've never seen it anywhere else other than from a Nepalese herbalist living in a monastery 4,800 meters up, which is what I've got. So I feel so privileged, 1, to have it, and 2, to be able to share it with you. But there is an alternative, which is to use it to make energy balls. Okay, where it's using this kind of the same herbs, slightly different ratio, but making it like the deliciously Ella energy balls, like the round energy balls, where it's used with soaked dates to make kind of like a paste, which you then roll into balls. You can put those in a kilner jar, and they'll last months, weeks. Ironically, I've run out. which is so frustrating because we always have them and I always use them. You know, I use them before I go to the gym. I use them if I'm at work and I need to pick me up. Just 1 or 2 balls a day, you know, it gives you a real hit. Okay, and they're more practical. Taking that with you to work or to the gym, or it's not great. So I just have that in the morning. But if I'm going out, if I've got long days, if I'm working late, I'm not home till late, I take the energy balls. And it's still the same recipe. It's authentic to the Himalayan traditions, but it just makes it into a practical kind of energy ball that you can put into a lunchbox. Okay. And the recipe for that is also up on the resources page now, and I'll email it out tomorrow. Okay, so you don't necessarily need to make both, but I would definitely make one of these. Okay, having that in your apothecary, the kids love it because it's quite, you know, it's not overly sweet, but it's palatable. The kids will have that in their porridge. It's just a win-win. Okay, so that please find the time to make that. I cannot tell you how powerful it is at kind of countering the mountain and creating that energy. Okay, I'm sure there's gonna be lots of questions about that. Like I say, every session, I'm not ignoring the questions. I will answer them once I finish the live. Quickly, running a bit behind, but I just want to talk about another remedy. And I'm sure lots of people who followed me for a while or have been on these 3 weeks previously would have heard me talk about this. Okay, if you haven't, or you have but you've never made it, you're in for an absolute treat. Okay, because it's probably the most palatable, beautiful tasting herbal drink you could probably ever find. Lots of herbal tonics don't taste that great. This one is phenomenal, and it's the famous Ojas tonic. Okay, give me a thumbs up or let me know in the comments if you've tried this before or if you've heard of it. I'm sure lots of you have. So the Ojas tonic is one of the oldest recorded kind of pre-formulated remedies in Ayurvedic medicine. Okay, and Ojas is an Ayurvedic concept that it means immunity. It means kind of immune protection, but much more. It means the physical production of energy. It means vigor. It means kind of vitality. It means disease prevention. It means youthfulness. It means animation. It means the physical creation of animation in our cells, organs, body, and mind. Okay, so Ojas, you know, think back to a time in your life where you were absolutely at the peak of health, where you felt strongest, happiest, healthiest, where you were exuding wellness. That is what Ojas is. Okay, and the more Ojas we create, the more youthful and vital we feel. And cultivating Ojas is one of the most important kind of markers in Ayurveda. There's a direct correlate with Western medicine here, okay, because there are foods and there are herbs that Ayurveda labels as being very high in Ojas. Okay, so Ashwagandha, Rhodiola, dates, nuts, healthy oils, seeds, things like that. And every single food that Ayurveda, or every single herb that Ayurveda labels as being high in Ojas, is also very high in potassium. And this is key, and it's a really important takeaway from tonight, because every cell in our body, so again, apologies for another science lesson, but every cell in our body has something called the sodium-potassium pump, which is what lets sodium out of our cells and potassium into our cells. And potassium is what is needed to create an electrical charge in our cells. Okay, our cells can't create an electrical charge without enough potassium. The more potassium we've got, the more electricity our cells produce. The more electricity our cells produce, the more energized they become. Most people are suboptimal in potassium intake because it's so hard to get it now because of agriculture. So we're not deficient, but we're suboptimal. And that means the cells aren't getting enough potassium, which means electrical energy production drops, which means our vitality drops. If we increase potassium intake, you will experience an increase in vitality and energy. Okay, not possibly, maybe, sometimes you will. It's a cellular fact. And the Ojas tonic is made up of foods and herbs that are loaded with potassium. So it's got either dairy milk or non-dairy milk. I use almond milk usually because it tastes the best in it. It's got ingredients like medjool dates, almonds, walnuts, coconut oil, ghee, cardamom, a little bit of raw honey, okay? You put all of those, again, the recipe is up on the resources page. I'll email it out tomorrow. It takes about a minute to make. Our kids absolutely love it. When you make it, it smells like a chai latte. You know, it's just the most beautiful. Like, you know, I never have it in summer. I never have it in spring or summer. It's the wrong kind of drink to have when it's warmer or hot. When it's cold, when it's dark, when you're needing a lift, when you're needing kind of to be energized in mind and body. If you feel like your motivation's dropping, or sad syndrome, or the weather's getting you down, or you feel cold or tired, it will lift you. Okay, again, think about the extreme Himalayan weather, you know, in the middle of winter. This was a way of galvanizing you in that environment, and it's hot. So you put all the raw ingredients, other than the herbs, into a blender, and you blend it. Okay, you then put that into a saucepan. You warm it up to, you know, kind of like a tea temperature or a coffee temperature. You then pour that into your cup. You add your ashwagandha and your rhodiola. Once it's at drinking temperature, you add about, I don't know, half a teaspoon of raw honey, mix it together, and it is this, because it's got coconut oil in it and it's got ghee. You haven't got to have the ghee, but the ghee makes it taste beautiful. It's rich, it's creamy, it's got, you know, all the benefits of the nuts, and it's just this beautiful aromatic, you know, when you're drinking it, you feel kind of like, you feel it kind of going in, okay, and it energizes you. It's just it's you know, think about what Ojas is, this vitalizing, energizing, immune boosting kind of compound. This is the Ayurveda's primary tonic for facilitating it, and it's also a brilliant way of getting rhodiola and ashwagandha into your body because you add it into the tonic. Okay, so those two, I mean, the Ojas tonic, it's just, you know, I don't have it every night, but I probably have it, I would say 2, 3, 4 times a week on average in autumn and winter, more so when it's really cold like it is now. So I would, you know, once you made it once and you know how to do it, it will take you probably a couple of minutes, okay, because you don't have to think about it. But this, having that in your apothecary ready to go, and just 1 teaspoon or half a teaspoon a day, it's one of the most, I think, the most amazing herbal secrets I've ever come across. It's time tested, it's evidence based, it just works. Okay, so please make that, particularly because it's so easy, because other than the rhodiola and the ashwagandha, all of the ingredients you need you can get from your supermarket. You can get the honey, you can get the cardamom, the ginger, the cinnamon, the turmeric. You know, it's super easy. Okay, so please make that. Let me know how you get on. Please do try the Ojas tonic. Mate, if you've got the ingredients, you might be able to make it tonight. Okay, because now's a good time, kind of 6:30. Let me know how you get on. Post your photos. I'd love to know your response to how you find the Ojas tonic, because it's a taste sensation. Yes, it's incredibly effective, but it's a taste sensation. Okay, so let me know how you get on. Any questions, let me know. If you're watching this on catch up or on YouTube, please post your questions on the comments or email me. Everyone who's asked a question this evening, I will answer now when we finish. But again, to have 130, 140 people here live is just it means so much to me. So thank you so much for your time. Have a lovely rest of the evening. Stay warm if you're snowy. And I will see tomorrow's session's fundamental. We're covering another batch of remedies. We've got a completely unique opportunity to explore. We've got lots of exciting stuff. But tomorrow is not the end, because we've got next week's bonus sessions as well. So lots of content to come. But have a lovely evening. I'll stop waffling and I will see you soon. Cheers, guys.